Hey guys, in this month's Historical Fiction 101, I'm going to be sharing with you some recommendations for the Holocaust. It seems like every year when I'm just kind of going through and strolling through just the latest historical fiction for World War II, it just seems like a never-ending list, you guys. You would think that the stories for World War II would just slowly be dying out. Like, how many stories are there to tell, you know? But yeah, it's a never-ending genre, you know. I think World War II it's a genre by itself at this point, just because of the sheer amount of historical fiction that comes out. And yeah, I definitely consider World War II historical fiction to be one of my favorites. As heartbreaking and as tragic as it can be and depressing, I still really love World War II historical fiction when it's well done and unique and different and whatnot. So yeah, I started realizing I've done all these historical fiction videos every month, and I haven't really done anything with World War II yet because I think I wasn't sure how I would do World War II, and I think the best approach is to do recommendations for different chunks of World War II, if that makes sense. You know, do recommendations for the Holocaust, do recommendations for books that just take place in Germany or Britain or Japan or in America, you know. World War II was just such a broad, huge thing, and that's why there's so many stories to tell, you know. There was just so much going on, so many people involved, and that's just the tragedy of it, you know. So yeah, for the purposes of this video, I am strictly going to only be focusing on World War II that deals with the Holocaust. So, meaning the books, there is a character at some point that goes to a concentration camp and they have to deal with that, or if there isn't anything that takes place in a concentration camp, if the book still focuses somewhere with a Jewish character, especially if other characters are hiding a Jewish character, more specifically. So yeah, anything like that, hiding a Jewish character, a character going to a concentration camp, all of that is up for grabs here for Holocaust recommendations. And as I always do when I do these videos, I'm going to be looking here on my computer, just reading off of the synopsises on Goodreads. So if any of these books sound like your cup of tea, go check them out and add them to your to-read list. So let's get going. I have 10 books here, and yeah, the list goes beyond 10 books, you guys. There are easily probably hundreds of books when it comes to the Holocaust. So first up, Maus by Art Spiegelman. Maus tells the story of Lilac Spiegelman, a Jewish survivor of Hitler's Europe, and his son, a cartoonist coming to terms with his father's story. Maus approaches the unspeakable through the diminutive. Its form, the cartoon. The Nazis are cats, the Jews mice, shocks us out of any lingering sense of familiarity and succeeds in drawing us closer to the bleak heart of the Holocaust. And yeah, as this kind of is referencing what's so great about this book and this narrative, it is done through the format of a graphic novel. I highly recommend checking this out. Even if you're not into graphic novels, I think this will definitely be something that lingers and stays with you, and it's such a remarkable, heartbreaking story and whatnot. And it is ultimately, it's about a father and son. A son who has to kind of deal with the fact that his father was a Holocaust survivor and what that means and how that affects him in his own life as well. And of course, my favorite book, The Book Thief by Markus Zusak, had to make this list. So yeah, this one takes place in Nazi Germany in 1939. By her brother's graveside, Liesel's life is changed when she picks up a single object, partially hidden in the snow. It is the Gravedigger's Handbook, left behind there by accident, and it is her first act of book thievery. So begins a love affair with books and words, as Liesel, with the help of her accordion-playing foster father, learns to read. Soon she is stealing books from Nazi book burnings, the mayor's wife's library, wherever there are books to be found. But these are dangerous times. When Liesel's foster family hides a Jew in their basement, Liesel's world is both opened up and closed down. Yeah, seriously, one of my top favorite books ever, you guys. It brings me to tears every time I read it. Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. I feel like this is a book that most people read maybe in in elementary school. I certainly read this in elementary school. This was kind of like required reading when I was in elementary school. I'm very curious, is this something that continues? You know, does it continue to this day? Do elementaries still require this book? Because if not, the schools are doing something wrong there. 10-year-old Anne-Marie Johnson and her best friend Ellen Rosen often think of life before the war. It's now 1943, and their life in Copenhagen is filled with school, food shortages, and the Nazi soldiers marching through town. When the Jews of Denmark are relocated, Ellen moves in with the Johansons and pretends to be one of the family. Soon, Anne-Marie is asked to go on a dangerous mission to save Ellen's life. Oh my god. I've not read this book in such a long time. I need to reread it again, because I think one of the last times I read it, last time I read it, it definitely was elementary school, and then I want to say when I was maybe in my 20s somewhere, I picked up the book again and reread it, and I still loved it. The Book of Lost Names by Kristen Harmel. Eve Abrams, a semi-retired librarian in Florida, is shelving books one morning when her eyes lock on a photograph in a magazine lying open nearby. She freezes. It's an image of a book she hasn't seen in 65 years, a book she recognizes as The Book of Lost Names. The accompanying article discusses the looting of libraries by the Nazis across Europe during World War II, an experience Ava remembers well, and the search to reunite people with the text taken from them so long ago. The book and the photograph, an 18th century religious text thought to have been taken from France in the waning days of the war, is one of the most fascinating cases. Now housed in Berlin's Zentrale und Landbibliothek library, it appears to contain some sort of code, but researchers don't know where it came from or what the code means. Only Ava holds the answer, but will she have the strength to revisit old memories and help reunite those lost during the war? As a graduate student in 1942, Ava was forced to flee Paris after the arrest of her father, a Polish Jew. Finding refuge in a small mountain town in the Free Zone, she begins forging identity documents for Jewish children fleeing the neutral Switzerland. But erasing people comes with a price, and along with a mysterious handsome forger named Remy, Ava decides she must find a way to preserve the real names of the children who are too young to remember who they really are. The records they keep in the Book of Lost Names will become even more vital when the resistance cell they work for is betrayed and Remy disappears. Oh my god. I do own this book. I have yet to get around to it, but it sounds so good. Sarah's Key by Tatiana de Rosny. I have read this book. I freaking loved it. So Paris, July 1942. Sarah, a 10-year-old girl, is taken with her parents by the French police as they go door to door, arresting French families in the middle of the night. Desperate to protect her younger brother, Sarah locks him in a bedroom cupboard, their secret hiding place, and promises to come back for him as soon as they are released. And 60 years later, Sarah's story intertwines with that of Julia Jarmond, an American journalist investigating the roundup. In her research, Julia stumbles onto a trail of secrets that link her to Sarah and to questions about her own romantic future. Yeah, this was definitely one of those books. There's the World War II aspect with the little girl, and then the 60 years later focusing on an older woman who kind of comes across this story and kind of unraveling this mystery, like what happened to the little girl. I need to find her. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyne. You know, I have yet to read this book, but I loved the movie. This movie was just so absolutely heartbreaking and devastating. I just don't know if I have it in me to try and read the book after what the movie did to me. Yeah, none of these plot synopsises here that I'm going through are really giving me much of anything, but what I'm recalling from the movie, we follow a young boy named Bruno. His father is a Nazi officer, and they are living right next door, not too terribly far away from one of the concentration camps. So the little boy Bruno, he's kind of out and doing what little boys do and roaming and adventuring, and of course he stumbles across the concentration camp, but of course he can't get in there because there's a big huge giant fence in the way. But it's here that he meets a little Jewish boy, and the two of them become the very best of friends, and they sit and start learning about each other's lives and, you know, the things that they have in common, the things that they have different, and yeah, the two of them being little boys and not understanding, you know, what is going on, why is this happening, why am I being treated this way, you know. And it's just such a remarkable, touching, heartbreaking story with these two boys, little boys, you know, who really don't have a complete understanding of what's going on around them, you know. I definitely recommend the movie. I would love to get around to the book at some point. Next up, The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. In April 1942, Lel Sokolov, a Slovakian Jew, is forcibly transported to the concentration camps at Auschwitz-Birkenau, where his captors discover that he speaks several languages. He is put to work as a tattooist, tasked with permanently marking his fellow prisoners. Imprisoned for more than 2.5 years, Lel witnesses horrific atrocities and barbarism, but also incredible acts of bravery and compassion. Risking his own life, he uses his privileged position to exchange jewels and money from murdered Jews for food to keep his fellow prisoners alive. One day in July 1942, Lel, prisoner 32407, confronts a trembling young woman waiting in line to have the number 34902 tattooed onto her arm. Her name is Gita, and in that first encounter, Lel vows to somehow survive the camp and marry her. You guys, I do own this book. I haven't read it yet. I have a feeling I'm going to be crying my eyes out because I have a feeling it's not going to have a happy ending. Next up, Silka, I think it's pronounced Silka, I'm not sure. Silka's Journey by Heather Morris. I have several Heather Morris books here, you guys, I'm going to be going through. But yeah, this second book by her. Silka Klein is 18 years old when Auschwitz-Birkenau is liberated by Soviet soldiers, but Silka is one of the many women who is sentenced to a labor camp on charges of having helped the Nazis with no consideration of the circumstances Silka and women like her found themselves in as they struggled to survive. Once at the Vorkuta Gulag in Siberia, where she is to serve her 15-year sentence, Silka uses her wits, charm, and beauty to survive. Just to go from one concentration camp to another. Just to survive one, just to go to another. Jesus. And then the third book here that I have by Heather Morris, Three Sisters. This is the newest one that just came out. This came out back in 2021. When they are girls, Sibi, Magda, and Livia make a promise to their father that they will stay together no matter what. Years later, at just 15 years old, Livia is ordered to Auschwitz by the Nazis. Sibi, only 19 herself, remembers their promise and follows Livia, determined to protect her sister or die with her. In their hometown in Slovakia, a 17-year-old Magda hides, desperate to evade the barbaric Nazi forces, but it is not long before she is captured and condemned to Auschwitz. In the horror of the death camp, these three beautiful sisters are reunited. Though traumatized by their experiences, they are together. They make another promise that they will live. Their fight for survival takes them from the hell of Auschwitz to a death march across war-torn Europe and eventually home to Slovakia, now under Iron Communist rule. Determined to begin again, they embark on a voyage of renewal to the new Jewish homeland, Israel. Yeah, this one sounds really, really, really good as well. And then last up, I have Lilac Girls by Martha Hall Kelly. On the eve of a fateful war, New York socialite Caroline Faraday has her hands full with her post at the French consulate and a new love on the horizon. But Caroline's world is forever changed when Hitler's army invades Poland in September 1939 and then sets its sights on France. An ocean away from Caroline, Kazia, a Polish teenager, senses her carefree youth disappearing as she sinks deeper into her role as courier for the underground resistance movement. In the tense atmosphere of watchful eyes and suspect neighbors, one false move can have dire consequences. For ambitious young German doctor Herta, an ad for a government medical position seems her ticket out of a desolate life, but once hired, she finds herself trapped in a male-dominated realm of Nazi secrets and power. The lives of these three women are set on a collision course when the unthinkable happens, and Kazia is sent to Ravensbrück, the notorious female-only Nazi concentration camp. The tragedy and triumph of their stories cross continents from New York to Paris and Germany to Poland, capturing the indomitable pull of compassion to bring justice to those whom history has forgotten. And yeah, I own that book as well. I think I own just about all these books on this list, you guys. It's just a matter of me finally getting around to them. So you guys, that is it for my recommendations for historical fiction in regards to the Holocaust. I would definitely really like to do one of these again in the future, or maybe just focus on something more specifically once again. If you have something you would like me to cover with the war, just let me know and I'll kind of prioritize that maybe over other sections if you so wish. So that is it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.